Hello and welcome. My name is Josh Hess. I'm doing an overview of my final capstone project. So I did a D&D or tabletop gaming campaign um, manager, map editor type thing. Kind of similar to Roll21 if you've ever used that. Um, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry. I'll kind of go through what that all means. So I did my project using Vue, um, all with TypeScript. Um, I would go over the code, but there's just so much of it; it's kind of pointless. There's over or close to 6,000 lines of code, so let's not get caught up in that. I'll just jump right into the program and kind of show you what's there, what I've achieved, what I plan on doing. Talk about that. So on the landing page, the first thing that pops up is a little warning screen that it's in alpha because a lot of things are still broken. um, Seeing as it's a little over ambitious. But anyway, you're greeted with three kind of choices: game master, player, and spectator. Most of the meat is inside of the game master. It's kind of the management portion of the software. Um, Once you click on the game master, it loads up all of the campaigns for the user that you're currently using. Right now, there's only one. It's just the default user. I plan on adding a login screen and a paywall at some later point, once I'm actually ready to charge money for this. Um, anyway, in the campaign editor, you can add a new campaign, ask for a name and description. Uh, Adds just a new campaign in this list. Search bar works, obviously. Um, Once you load it into a campaign is really just kind of a container for other resources. So we've got um, the map editor right here. So it shows you all the maps you've created, and you can select one, or you can select a template map, which just, as of now, there's only one template, and it's the empty map pretty much. Once you load into the editor, you're greeted with the map you loaded up, and then this little sidebar, and all these tabs do different things. So you've got the file tab, the tile tab, asset tab, the character tab, and the session tab. So the file tab, as the name would imply, you can create a new map, which just starts in a new, you know, a new map. You can rename the map you're currently using. You can save your changes. You can duplicate the map, which just makes a new version, calls a copy of the map you just were doing. And you can go back and load more maps. So as you can see, that it actually did duplicate it. So there's two instances of this map that are now distinct. Tiles and assets, basically the same thing. They're just multiple layers. You can just draw them on, pretty handy. Um, there's also characters, and that was a big part of my goal. A big portion of my milestones were related to characters because I want this to be tabletop gaming software that's kind of all unified, and so I want you to be able to kind of store character information in the same place that you store map information. So it shows you all the characters that have been created for a campaign that you've selected, and you can also go and add more, create more. You have similar options to the map options. So we created a new character. Let's call him Bob. Um, these are all just open source images I found. Eventually, I want to have this be more oriented as like a your class, and then eventually I want there to be stats. But I'm not gonna reinvent the D&D stats, so I figured at some point I'd just integrate some API, but that's later down the road. Um, Once you're done with it, though, you can save. You can also duplicate. Just makes a new one. You go back. You can then load in those characters um, that you just created. Obviously, a character can only be in one spot. Um, that's all fine and dandy. And then the last thing is kind of goes back to the player and spectator areas from the landing page. inside of the map editor, you can create a session that starts from the map that you've been editing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So it looks like nothing changed, but in fact, we went from the editor to the viewer window, where it reloaded back the same map. We can no longer edit it, but we have this top bar that shows us the amount of players in the session and the spectators in the session. It also gives us a session code and session time. So you can go ahead as a player and type in that session code. Go ahead and enter it in, and voila, here we are as another player. Right now, the the player name is actually just random junk because it's a sample player, like I explained earlier. And also, one should note, since everyone is the same player, if a third player joins in, it'll give the same name. So there's just two instances of that one player because they're logged in as the same user, which is the default user. But anyway, that's kind of it. Really the one last thing I've got to do is actually make these like editable but not editable. So in like a dynamic way, I want you to be able to move them around, so the player can move around players and the DM can move around anyone. But other than that, it's pretty much where I want it to be. Obviously, there's a lot more polish that needs to be done. I've got a lot of crazy plans for it in the future, but for now, as far as the basis goes and as far as my milestones go, that's kind of covers everything. Like I said, I'm not really going to go through the code because there's way too much, but I'll do a brief overview. So it's kind of composed of these two projects, the backend and the front end. Front end is with Vue. The backend is just a regular Node project using TypeScript. All of the data is stored using MongoDB. Database framework that I should mention, I hated at first, but now I've grown to really, really like. It's pretty simple to use. It kind of gets away from the whole SQL weird new language paradigm, and you just kind of use JSON transactions. So very, very, very dead stupid simple, which is why I kind of like it, because I like stupid simple. But anyway, between the two projects, really how it works is the front end gets compiled and then hosted by the back end, and the back end runs as a service, which is what I will be submitting. And I'll also, I have it live right now. It's just broken because I tried to set it up so it automatically build whenever I push to my Git repo. But for whatever reason recently, it's not been automatically building. But I should have that by the submission date. And so, yeah, those two things, executable to run it here, and then just a link to the live version in the cloud. That's really it. Thanks for watching.